Can we return to this question of which you had posed earlier of can we or should films like this have something which is, let's say, has a positive direction to it? Because there is, in some senses, a sense of despair. The people, the Kashmiri Pandits haven't gone back. The people in Mumbai haven't gone back. There's a permanent, up to now at least, ghettoization. Delhi is perhaps not quite as negative in the sense that it has reconstituted itself a bit. But can we perhaps imagine a situation where this is reversed? What was at one time basically an attack on humanity, which is why when we formed a group in Bombay after the 2002 Gujarat carnage, we called it Insaniyat because somehow it was very obvious to us it was an assault on humanity. Can we think of ways to reverse the effects which are still there? One was this thing of the legal pursuing, which, as you said, has not been very successful. But at a grassroots level, I mean, what would all three of you think?
We often talk about life actually sometimes imitating art and art imitating life, and sometimes the reality being worse than what an artist can portray. You know, it's impossible for art to portray reality as it really is. And can you really convey an essence of what happened in the Holocaust, either documentarily or through fiction? So certain things are impossible to express, let's say. But I'd like to think that the converse may also be true, that life may imitate art, and therefore, if we take an existing, dreary, difficult situation as a takeoff point and construct on what we think should happen, either in fictional mode or in actual, that could possibly set off something, and whether it's in a fiction film mode or in a documentary mode, because I don't really think documentary need only to reflect what is happening, because then you just need a camera, but you must construct on the situation and see how you can probably change it around. I mean, I wonder.
I personally feel vis-a-vis my film here, I thought it'll be really helpful if it generated a conversation. And what I find is it's from both the Kashmiri Muslims and the Kashmiri Pandits. They are not talking to each other. They don't talk to each other, hardly, Very few, there might be individual friends, but at a community level, there is a suspicion from both the sides. And I think what would be wonderful if films like this generate, it's like this story, like I tried to, show it to some of the people. So this story is not a story that a lot of young people who haven't seen Kashmiri Pandits live in the valley believe in. Similarly, the Kashmiri Pandits don't believe a certain narrative, which is absolutely a true narrative of what is going on in Kashmir today, the militarization. So what I feel is that films can play that role where there can be a conversation that can take place.
I rather feel there is no home to go back to if we think about in practical terms and not in artistic or film terms. Yeah. So that reverse migration, I don't think whether it's possible, because I feel that home is not there to go back to. Mm-hmm. And with films like Mumra, our attempt was to bring out what Mumra actually can be. I'm not sure it's the actual Mumra which I portrayed, but what is Mumra, what is more of Mumra there too, rather than just termed it as Chota Pakistan and few terrorists have been captured from Mumra, so it's Atangwadi yahan pe jaake chup jate hain. So I just tried to bring out little human values about Mumra, or what can more be explored in Mumra rather than just being termed as a Chota Pakistan. So I think that was also kind of a positive step taken towards the whole issue.
I'm very impressed by the film, and I just want to carry on with what Sashi said. So just a little bit of addition from my experience. I was in Mumbai at the time, just after the riots. We were having the protest from Dadar, the first protest from Dadar onwards, where Asghar Ali, Engineer Maida, Anand and all were there after the Mumbai massacre. And then the film, just before that, I think, or during that time, the film personalities all came out and protested against the violence in Mumbai at that time. They also had a press conference in Delhi, against the violence. The press asked them one question. See, you have so much of violence in your films, then why are you protesting against the violence in Mumbai and all that, you know? So, I don't think effective answers were given for that, but Nasruddin Shah gave an interesting answer, which I want to relate with. He said violence in cinema is a reflection of reality, and that's it. And and as well as cinema is concerned, people don't imitate violence. It is just because the way you tuck your shirt and put your tie or your behavior, that kind of thing, people imitate. Beyond that, they don't imitate, which is absolutely false. There's so much of incidents of people imitating violence in cinema as such, So what I just want to really appreciate what Sashi said. It's a kind of how images, literature, art, cinema, and people imitate it also, and the reality is also being imitated. Somewhere it's a kind of mixture of both, and we deal with that. It's like our consciousness, how is dictated by what we see, what we hear, and what we taste and what we eat. Everything is somewhere mixture of that, and it's a dual kind of situation which is there, But what we have to really discuss, I think, on these issues is also how we construct the other, the construction of the other is a very interesting phenomenon, Look at this audience. Actually, we may look the same, but we are not. We are all other in different forms, from different states, different man, woman, and different, so many identities here itself. But yet we are sitting and discussing things, But there's a conscious situation outside, just we get out of the hall, how we construct the other, which you find all this. That is a political process which you have to take into action. And what Sashi said about the construction of some kind of what we as alternative. You didn't say the words, but that has to be projected in our mind as the responsibility of all artists as such. I think that's a beautiful way of putting it, Shashi's thing, I think.
Just wanted to say that one way in which I found of putting a positive spin on reality, really, one of the things I remembered from my childhood is actually not so much the violence, but our Sinhalese neighbors who really gathered around us and helped us to escape and sheltered us and so on. And when I did my research later on in the late 1980s and 1990, that was one of the questions that I put to these refugees and displaced people. How do you relate, or how have you related to to people from other communities? And I got some wonderful stories, actually, of solidarity, friendship, and from friends, neighbors, sometimes even total strangers who had saved their lives. So I feel that is something that does give hope for the future, that is not just all hatred, but that there is this sense of humanity which comes to the rescue at such points, without which things would have been a lot worse. if that's possible to imagine.
I just wanted to add one point to this, and this is again in the context of Kashmir. Sometimes what worries me a lot is that when there are certain kind of narratives which becomes a pattern which emerges, then a certain group kind of starts owning that narrative. And then it gives it a completely different kind of an interpretation. I'll tell you, like for example, it seems, even from the Kashmiri Pandit point of view, there is this organization called Panun Kashmir, which is a completely right-wing organization. Suddenly it seems there is this whole, the whole interpretation becomes one-dimensional. And which is something that all the other narratives, what she's saying about hope of people helping each other, and actually behind every Kashmiri Pandit who escaped, there is a story of one Muslim family who were like, you hear in my film that when Kirti says we moved out of Kashmir in one day, and that's a fact because her father and her grandfather refused to move out. They said, हम लोग तो यहीं के हैं, यही हमारा वतन है, हम क्यों छोड़ के जाएंगे? So, and then they got this threat, which is not in the film. He's a doctor. So, उनके letter box में it was said that both the girls will be picked up tomorrow. So that's the day, the next day they left. And there was a very dear friend of Dr. Kaul who actually organized the family to leave. So there is always a story which is very fascinating.